Sometimes when it's a delicious feast of ice cream, sprinkling some memberberries on top just enhances the flavor here on Beecher Please. A lovely cruising altitude trip thing. I don't know exactly how to do this because we're reviewing Picard. My name is Joseph.
Sometime in 2018, we had a discussion about Picard, and I believe that I said I didn't want to see the bridge crew on the bridge of the Enterprise. I didn't want to season 8. I was wrong. I'm your co-host, Peter.
Whatever stupid shit I said was completely incorrect. Here we are, man. We finished it. We finished Picard season 3, and not out of obligation, but out of desire. And we purposely structured this so there was the first 4, the second 4, and then the last 2. And having now seen the last 2, I think you can see why that was my suggestion.
Yeah, really great segmenting of that. And it has been a long time since we watched season 8. I want to say it's been 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Since we started, yeah. It's been a month.
No, since we did the last one.
Yeah, I guess it has been a couple of weeks, hasn't it?
The work's been real busy. I've had other stuff going on. It's summertime. We're here June 19th, finally reviewing this. I did episode 8 2 days ago. Episode 9 2 days ago. Episode 10 last night. And the last 2 really stand as almost completely different stories. That might as well have been its own season. That, the first segment, dealing with the ruse, getting the band back together. Then the final real big conflict point with the changelings. And then we get into 9 and 10. And things start out quick, right? Because episode 8 ended with Troy joining up with Jack. The changeling threat, which we had still been kind of led to believe was the primary antagonist in all of this, had caused real problems for them. But the Titan had gotten rid of all the changelings after a very gruesome takeover. What was that? The ship that was staring them down?
The Shrike.
No, the Federation ship. That the Rolaren blew up her shuttle in front of the engine.
Oh, yeah. Lexington? It had one of those sort of like classic Trek nautical names. I do forget what it was.
But, they took off. Shaw's like, who's after us? And Riker's like, everybody. But at this point, they've escaped. They're out. They got a chance to assess the situation. It's become clear that Jack Crusher is the crux of everything. And Troy, who has now recently come on board, says, hey, by the way, I am a telepath. And when the person writing me gives a shit, I'm actually pretty effective and powerful. So
let's talk about that for a second. This is Picard season 3, episode 9, Vox, written by...
Stop right there. The choice to use Vox. Listen, Terry Matalas, you're good. You know your stuff. But you came from Voyager. You know the stain. The white, chalky, flaky stain on the name Vox.
He was also working on Enterprise. Yes, he knows.
There is one Vox out there. It's Vox Sola.
Yeah, and this does not erase that stain. That would be impossible. It coated the whole cargo hold. But Vox was written by Sean Tretta and Kylie Rossiter. Whoever you two are, you did it. Directed by Terry Matalas. And it looks like Sean Tretta is writer, co-executive producer. So he had a strong creative hand in this. He also wrote No in Scenario and Disengage, were a couple of the episodes that we reviewed last time. And like you said, number 1 star, circle it. It's probably the most effective writing of Troy's powers ever, in terms of she's got skills that now I think I understand. After all these years, that was a really effective way to tell me why Troy's useful and powerful.
Not just the telepathy, but also some pretty good, guided counseling.
Yeah. How she combines the 2 skills to try and go deeper than any other normal counselor
nice
possibly could. Yeah. That's min-maxing your character sheet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You got a racial benefit, and you're going to go ahead and do the class that you can use that statistic for. She did it.
What's behind the red door? We're staring at it. It's at the end of the Titan hallway. There's red burgundy tendrils growing out everywhere. Jack kind of deflects her questioning, instead choosing to think about a planet that was, a bunch of different flowers, all beautiful, yet all connected. And that's where you really start going, okay, I think I see where this is finally going. And as Troy comes up and opens up the door, she sees something horrific, opens her eyes and goes, hey, great session. I gotta go, and I'm gonna run away, and totally don't be freaked out. Like, not her most professional moment.
You know all that stuff I said about how we'll do this together, and I'm right here, and I'm not leaving you? I have to go. Goodbye. All that shit is in the garbage. And why is it in the garbage? Because Troy saw the alpha level threat. The threat I think he had to know was going to be at the root of the final hurrah of the Next Generation crew. The villain that it always had, the only villain it could be, and that is the Borg. And it's an important choice for a couple reasons, not just because it's the one that makes just all of the sense in terms of the story. Like, who else could be seen as their biggest villain, the most dire threat to the Federation, but the Borg, the only species that's ever come close to actually destroying them, aside from, oh yeah, the Dominion that were already involved. But this also basically hard resets everything that happened in Picard previously. Don't worry your head about it, Peter, but Terry Metalis is sending a message, and that message is the people who came before me were fucked up, and we're just going to ignore everything they did. Because that season had a lot to do with the Borg, and they literally just say it doesn't happen.
Yeah, so they go, no one heard from the Borg in over a decade, and now this. And I'm like,
Wait a second.
What?
I recall that is incorrect.
So I don't want to go too deep on the Borg here, but there's stuff going on. I genuinely thought that the Borg were a strong point, perhaps the strongest point out of the first season. So for all the gripes or all of the things that you could potentially erase from season 1 of Picard, undoing the progress made on the Borg is not my favorite choice.
I will say this. It only erases season 2, not season 1. Because the season 1, that cube got interdicted by the Romulans at some unknown point. That cube where all of those ex-Borg were being deprogrammed was severed from the collective by the stupid Tau Shiar super duper power. And therefore, everything that developed there is not reversed. This is reversing season 2, which was all about the Borg. They had a current encounter with the Borg.
Alison Pill turns into the Queen, doesn't she?
But the Borg are good now, and they're from it's dumb. And Metalis is just saying, you're right, I can't fix any of that. I'm just gonna act like none of that shit happened. Literally, obviously, spoiler alert, at the very end of this, Q even shows up, who died. And it gets mentioned that he died, and they just hand wave it with one line, and it's like, okay, we're moving on then.
Funny thing about saying your boss is stupid.
Not a good way to get that next show you want.
Yeah, now that I've seen where they end and how strong and how much steam they had, and now that Paramount has foolishly renewed Kurtzman's grip on Trek, still any announcement about this Titan show?
Paramount Plus' only show that's ever tracked 3 times in the top 10 is Picard. It's probably going to get nominated for an Emmy.
But where's that green light on it?
Exactly. Still nothing. Why? Because Metalis made Trek with a box of scraps and embarrassed his bosses by making it so much better than everything they're spending money on.
Yep.
You can tell. You can tell that's it.
Yep. But hey, you know what? You're going to get that Starfleet Academy shit show going on.
There is a little bit of a divide. Sorry, I know you're about to go into something else here, but Akiva Goldsman is clearly more pro legacy than Kurtzman.
Oh, the same Akiva Goldsman you just motherfucked up and down the wall.
I motherfucked him huge on our little YouTube clip. Don't get me wrong.
Turned yourself into a middle-aged rage guy meme over.
But I enjoy garbage fights, and the idea that Kurtzman is so personally offended because his handprints were all over Picard and he fucked it up and then gave it to the guy who happened to be standing there and then got stunted on. And that's really the reason why
Fuck
this
these
isn't
fools,
happening.
man. Let's talk about good stuff.
Yes, agreed. Which
So,
this is, by the way, like unguarded.
yes. So, because it's good, because there's 10 out of 10 moments, there's some silly stuff, there's some weak stuff, and ultimately it just doesn't fucking matter because it is, I don't want to say ramrodding, but it is a bucket of oil being poured on a slip and slide to bring us to the moment that is what I'm going to care about. So here's the plot, basically, right? That Picard also, we're undoing certain things from the first 2 seasons, very notably keeping Picard as a synth, which Daj was a synth, right?
Correct.
But she was like a super badass Terminator.
Yeah, the Picard's body, I mean, it was a dopey ass line of dialogue, but they do say when he comes back from being put into the synth body that he has been made to be like the man he is rather than a super
one
duper
for
man.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of letting him, run up walls and flip kick people, he's going to have a hard time getting upstairs. Also, side note on this, Jack Crusher is aware that he's a synth. And I guess when Data's everybody's best friend, there's a higher tolerance or inclusiveness to artificials, right?
Yeah.
But still, like, nobody at any point ever was like, you're not really Picard. You're like a clone of Picard. And like, granted, you're a clone on our side, but we have dealt with, I don't know what, 4 or 5 other 1-for-1 exact clones of Picard that we have like killed in various ways.
You
so
killed one of them personally. Remember Shinzan? Remember him?
Right. So like, forgive us if we hold you at arm's length. Like, I'm sure you think you're Picard, but you're not. You're a robot with some fucking memories. You're not my real dad. You're just a fucking answering machine that's got a really long message on it. So here's the deal. The Borg are out there, and the Borg have joined forces with the Changelings because the Federation wrecked both their asses. And they said, hey, go find Picard's real body because he has this aromatic syndrome. But forget what you saw in All Good Things. It's not real aromatic syndrome, because guess what it actually is?
I had to assume, Peter, that this plot element tickled you down to the subcockle area. Like, this is made for you. Tell me what was the grand scheme? What did they do? And did you come when they explained it?
I absolutely did not. So, attacking you guys head on didn't work. And then with 1 cube.
Right.
And rather than just, getting the other 6,000 cubes that we had laying around prior to Species 8472 destroying all of them, instead of just coming back with 2 cubes or 4 cubes, then we decided we were going to go back in time and Terminator you guys. But then that didn't work. So then we were going to bioengineer a weapon so it would rain AIDS, later to be copied by the fucking Xindi.
Right.
But that didn't work. So then we're going to custom tailor some DNA into one person that
hold on. There's a very important point here that gets brought up when the plan finally gets explained. That it resonates with particularly you and I. Because what happened to the Borg? They were chilling. They were doing their thing. There was lots of cubes. They were still a major threat in the galaxy, even if they had a species 8472 problems. And then future Janeway bioweaponed them to get Voyager back. This is
I forgot about that.
This is a direct sequel to Endgame. That is why they're fucked. When you see the Borg, they explain this. Terry Matalas went into more detail about this that wasn't explained on camera, but they do explain on camera that like the Queen's like, after you did this to us and left me on the edge of space with, you know, no ability to assimilate anymore and nothing to do but waste away and die as a consequence. What she's referencing is that when Future Janeway came back, that bioweapon, that's what it did to them. And that's what got Voyager home.
Let's recap that real quick, because they were at Borg Shantytown Cyber Nexus 1 or whatever.
Yes, they were at Unimatrix 01.
And then did the Queen go after Earth, or did Voyager get in the tube in the transwarp conduit first?
So the whole point was that Future Janeway went in the shuttle with the bioweapon in her.
Oh, that's right. She
was
Trojan
a simulation bait. Yeah, Trojan horsed them, and then they started to decay as Voyager escaped. And what the Queen, played by Alice Krieg,
voiced by.
I mean, I also agree. I would also not want to be in that makeup, but she did a great job with the voice. I mean, that was the Borg Queen. I really liked it. What Matalas explained in more depth is to say that massive Borg cube is literally the entire remaining collective. It is all the Borg. Like, she has cannibalized the entire collective to pull this caper off because it's the only chance they have.
How did this prevent them from assimilating?
The bioweapon blocks their ability to assimilate. They just they no longer have the capacity. That's what it did to them.
I forget, did Future Janeway develop that in the future and bring it back into the past, or did she develop it while she was on Voyager?
She developed it in the future and brought it back to the past.
Maybe I need to rewatch that episode. Well, whatever.
Yeah.
So anyways, the Borg have teamed up with the Changelings,
who also got bioweaponed by the Federation. So they have the same beef.
Yeah. They've got the same tragic backstory. It's a real
it's tragic backstory as we got our shit pushed in by the space democracy who used chemical weapons.
Yep.
They're a bunch of monsters.
The Borg and the Changeling are ready to be crew members of PIC's Enterprise. They all have their very dark, tragic backstories.
That's true. They'd fit right in.
So we are to believe that the Borg had the foresight that when they abducted Picard and turned him into Locutus, they impregnated him with an altered gene sequence. So out of all the humans that have been assimilated, or anything that's been assimilated, they put all their eggs in the one basket of Picard and sent him out.
That's not what's happened, though. You're incorrect. Locutus was given the universal receiver gene because the intention was for him to rule with the Queen as a king. And to do that, he needed to be able to receive information from all of the drones the same way she does. That's why he has that. And it's why it's part of his DNA. And he even says in dialogue, that's why I could always hear them even after I was disconnected.
Right. And that was... Well, let's see. 7 could also do it, but 7 also still had implants. So, again, I still think this is a pretty big ask. And it's also silly that if Picard was legitimately still hearing the Borg, that he would have never followed up in any capacity and been like, hey, I think I'm still like, either I'm crazy and I'm PTSD, or maybe...
Well, I mean, it's what First Contact is, right? Like, in First Contact, he hears them. He even says, like, I can hear them to his crew as it's happening. And then uses that information to be like, shoot them here to blow up the cube.
Which, again, why would you never follow up on that? Like, I get his crew being like, okay, well, the captain's been through a lot, and, like, he's probably a little crazy. But, you know, he won the war. I would still think maybe Picard should have followed up on it. It's a cool explanation why he did still have this seemingly telepathic link. Obviously, it's heavy retconning. It's still within, I would say, the margins for acceptable.
Yeah, it fits the available facts in a way that makes sense.
So the Changelings are charged with getting onto Daedalus, right? No.
Daystrom
Station. Getting Picard's original body for a purpose, and that purpose kind of falls by the wayside because Jack becomes the real prize. But like, what was the goal to get his?
Yeah,
So
because he had the code for the receiver, and what the accident of chance was when he had a kid with Crusher, he hit that gene turned into a universal transmitter in Jack. So after the Borg Queen realized, oh, I can hear that guy broadcasting. That's Picard's son. That's interesting. If I get my hands on that, I can do something with that. What do I do with Picard? Well, if I have his DNA, I can use the transporter to implant that DNA in all of the Starfleet personnel, and then use the transmitter that Picard accidentally created for me in having a child to broadcast a message that assimilates all of these people I put the receiver gene into.
As hokey and silly as Jack having this mutated gene that makes him a biomechanical amplifier, having changelings infiltrate Starfleet with the express intent of seeding Picard's DNA segments into the base biological blueprint with which the transporter recreates everybody. Really cool.
Absolutely fantastic use of technology in the universe in a way that like you can buy into.
Like, again, stupid that Jack can control everybody because of a DNA alteration. Like, that's
that's just okay. It happened because of quirky fate. That one is the least explained.
But again, this thing that demolecularizes you and then rebuilds you from what the software says, and it's got built-in viruses. And there's a lot of way we can sit here and say, well, why not just give everybody space aids or something else that's going to kill off Starfleet. Metalis crosses these dubious. It's silly, and there's alternatives, but I think he crosses his T's and he dots his I's. Why not just kill Starfleet off? Because now the Borg are sterile; they cannot assimilate new, and this is a way to rebuild the army. Right? They're not looking to kill Starfleet; they're looking to assimilate Starfleet. They can't do it with nanoprobes and metal grafts, but you can zombify people and whatever. So,
it allows them to get around the debilitating future virus that Janeway gave them.
So now the Borg are in play for real. And Crusher and Picard are like, oh my god, we got to help Jack. And then Troy's like, actually, there's protocols. He's like, alpha level threat. That's not your son. That might be the harbinger of death. And we got to take things the right way. So Picard goes in to talk to him. Jack starts laying on, some sob story. I've spent my life feeling like I didn't fit in the right place and that I wanted greater connections and this and that. Poverty, bigotry. What are some of the other flaws he calls out that like this is the first very non-Gene Roddenberry things going on here?
I loved that Patrick Stewart's like on another level in this season compared to the rest of his work. He really manages to play a version of Picard that is far more credible. And of course, the key journey he goes on with his character, because we've talked a lot about the plots everybody else has. His is accepting that he's a father and trying to nurture this element of himself that he's never had to consider. Something that famously his character has avoided and never wanted to develop. He's been a career-focused man who doesn't like children. And now he has a grown adult son that he's trying to connect with. And this scene is representing the Starfleet side of him.
Not only a son that he's trying to reconnect with, a son who just almost died.
Yes.
Several times. And like really, go back to that conversation with Riker who did lose his son. Hey, you gotta make this count, and it's gotta count quick. Either he's gonna die to these changelings, or we're all gonna die down in like this black hole space baby thing. Picard is forced to acknowledge his feelings for Jack and his arm gets twisted behind his back by fate to like act on it and act quickly. So he does a lot of catching up real quick.
And it makes it's a more earned sort of emotion, because this is a more properly reserved version of Picard rather than the over emotional one that we saw previously. And this reserved one does need to be brought out of the shell, does need to kind of be forced to face that Jack's even his son to begin with, even though it's obvious to Riker from the very beginning. And even in this scene, he's going in there to give a Starfleet explanation of what's going to happen. You're going to have to go to this Vulcan monastery. We'll hide you there. Like, there's precautions we have to make for everyone else. And Jack's calling him out of like, you keep saying you want to be my father and you want to put me first. And then every single time you're given that opportunity, it's, I got to do the greater good thing, which is his beef, right? Because he went to go see Picard and Picard brushed off the idea of family and having children after talking to those cadets, and all of that. Like, he's always felt like he doesn't have a place in his father's life. And Picard, while he's just new to all of this, it's not fair that he's being put on the spot emotionally like that, but that's the tension.
Yeah, flip side to that conversation, though, is Picard coming back and saying, like, listen, I've been around this block, right? I was Locutus.
Yeah.
I brought Earth to its knees. I killed thousands of my extended Starfleet family. I almost blew up the D. I got a lot of fucking blood on my hands, and as much as I love you, I, more than anybody else, singularly realize the threat that you are not only to everyone else, but yourself, because you're going to be carrying that grief. And basically, it kind of sucks the way this has got to go, but trust me when I tell you it's for the fucking best, because this has been persistent baggage that I have carried for 35 years.
Yeah, delivered perfect.
I don't know if the Borg is the ultimate threat that I would have liked to see as like the final big bad guy. I agree it makes sense on a lot of levels. But I just feel like, especially in the wake of Voyager, that the Borg have just been used too much. And even within these 3 seasons of Picard, Borg. For something that they beat, and they beat well in First Contact, it's a lot. And I have fatigue on it always being the goddamn Borg. And I wonder, especially with Stewart being an executive producer, like, is this a facet of the character that he likes? Is it something that when he's talking with writers and stuff, he's like, no, I like that wounded part of Picard. I think it added a lot of like Shakespearean something that I can draw on.
Oh yeah.
And like,
I think you're totally onto something. I think you're absolutely right.
I can sell this wound. So I don't care how many times you give it to me. Every time I can put a little bit more behind it. And there's some part of me that I can tap and get this thing going. And please, by all means, give me a reason to draw my Borg.
Pathos.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I wish they had not shown up basically since Endgame. It would have been great if this has been the first appearance of the Borg in Picard. It's the first time we've even seen a hint of the Borg since Voyager did the damage they did. And I think that would have made the Queen's state a little bit like would make more sense. But that said, Stewart's performance in a lot of these 2 episodes is just the final payoff of Picard as a character that I think we've been waiting 5 years for when we did what you talked about, which was talked about the show happening.
I went through before this. I listened to our podcast from 2018 after Picard was first announced, and you and I made our predictions. And I listened to the first episode we did for, takes money to make money, and if you're going to care, I'll care too. I forget where it was exactly that I reached the point where I was like, they're telling the story. It's not about the Enterprise crew. It's about Picard. It's about the state of the world. We think that's the right, stupid fucking us. Oh, we think that's the right story to tell. It's very interesting to go back and listen to that early stuff, the enthusiasm that we had about it, and our thoughts and predictions on where the world would be and how we had a unwavering trust in Patrick Stewart to do the right thing with this. Clearly, he shit the bed the first 2 seasons as a creative lead guiding force on it. Thank God Terry Matalas was able to come in, rein him in, and turn him back on so he could project what made Picard special in the first place.
I think you're spot on. Patrick Stewart always had the capacity to do what we were hoping, which is exactly what we have watched. It took someone else who understood how to make that happen.
Yes.
And then it's like indulging what you want isn't correct because you're an actor, right? Like you draw on the material you're given and maximize it. That's what made you great on the show to begin with, is that you took the otherwise unremarkable material and made it remarkable. Well, how about this? Why don't you let me make the material?
And then you do your thing.
And you do your thing. And here we are.
And you don't have to wear a uniform. And we're also not going to put you back in the Borg costume. We'll do you that favor too. So they've figured out what the plan is here. And at this point, they start catching some material coming in from Frontier Day. And we get another great cameo as we see
Jack leaves. By the way, it's an important plot point, right? Jack decides he's just going to go terminate the Borg Queen himself. He's not going to be confined to a Vulcan monastery. He mind controls the 2 heavies at the door, who are very impressive Starfleet heavies, by the way. Very large men. A+ stuntmen. And they show up later. And takes a shuttlecraft and books out. And Data's like, I can't find him. He's turned off the transponder. Whatever he's doing, he's going to do. And that's when they decide, like, our last option is to go just to Earth and warn everybody and just shout, like, yo, guys, we got fucking problems, and just see if they believe us.
So Frontier Day, the thing that they have is basically pulled the entire fleet in, right? Which seems like a real bad move, that you have a galaxy that is consistently on the precipice of one space disaster or another, but you're like, you know what? Bring all these do-good hero ships from whatever butthole corners of the galaxy, and everybody needs to come home so we can do some Russian-style military pageantry here, right?
Is a comet about to hit your planet? Sorry, bros, we have a parade to do.
Oh, well. Did you really need these virus relief supplies on Mentok 4 or any other plot from 14 seasons of Star Trek where, God, if you weren't here, we would all die? No, we got to go back for a parade. The parade is twofold. One is the christening of the Enterprise F, rolling hot off the production line. I personally don't think the F is a very fetching vessel, and I don't think it's necessarily...
So that design is from Star Trek Online. Mm-hmm. It is the design of the Enterprise F in that game. And that is an homage to Star Trek Online to say, we see you boys. Here is your Enterprise. It's going to come out of the system here.
Here's my homage to Star Trek Online. I'm holding it in my hand. I'm putting it right in the trash where it belongs. Never cared about that fucking game, and that's an ugly design, and I'm glad it gets blown up or whatever the fuck ends up happening. But of interest, who's in the big chair there?
That would be Admiral Elizabeth Shelby in the flesh.
She gives a great speech about what Frontier Day represents, and that is basically commemorating Archer, the NX-01, and humanity's venture out into the stars, forever changing everything. So pretty cool to, premiere the newest version of the F. You're, of course, going to wonder what happened to the E. I'm wondering what happened to the E. I think it would be best served just exactly the way they handled it, which is just something happened, it's potentially embarrassing, and we're not going to mention it again.
It was that reference was done specifically to provide fodder to people who do the tie-in comics and books to write a story around that open question if they so choose. That's what Matalas said. Like, the whole point wasn't to explain it. It was to let other people use it as creative fodder later on.
Love it. Love Shelby as Admiral at this point. Makes sense that she's an admiral. She had upper management written all over. Shelby came in, and this is just right. Shelby comes in as part of the Starfleet initiative to address the Borg directly.
Yes, she does.
She gets hot and heavy on this. A lot of the advanced ship design, Sovereigns, Akiras. This is all part of this post Borg encounter, which of course pays off for the Dominion War because now Starfleet has pivoted back from this wishful thinking.
Soft exploration vessels to hard-edged military vessels.
Yes. And the second part of the Frontier Day assembly is that now Starfleet has a new technology where all of the ships' line of sight can basically network for AI-controlled war formations. What exactly is the point here? If the crew dies or if there's a problem that the Overmind can take over, like, did you have better insight into what's going on here exactly?
I think that the speech says like catastrophic crew loss. So a circumstance in which the ship would be operable, but the crew is dead or incapable of operating the vessel.
Which happens like never on screen. So this really seems like
it's a Dominion War thing, like the idea of like the bridge got blown up, but the rest of the ship still works. So we can just seize control of the whole thing and have it still shoot its phasers, even though everyone on board is dead.
I love that it's Riker, who always had a bug up his ass about Shelby, to say like basically that fucking bitch. For her to spearhead something
all the women to be doing this right now, is
so specifically Borg-like in function, and that was her whole thing. It was to come in and fight the Borg, and instead she's Borgifying the vessels. Like A+ zinger there.
Also, I do love, and this is something else our little pointed out, but like this shows a real vindication of Riker getting to watch the two women in his life who he hated the most get killed right in front of him. Like Ro and Shelby. Both of them get obliterated.
Yeah, and think about that too. Like the two women he hated the most. There's still no real like bad guys in the main cast and like the main attack. Like they're people he didn't agree with, but it's not like these are just straight up evil bitches. Like,
oh no, yeah, especially Ro. I mean, like
that's good 90s writing. I think that they didn't get along. There was personality conflicts there, but it's not like I'm evil for the sake of evil. Like
his conflict with Ro was like, they literally, the moment they didn't remember who they were, fucked, right? Like
sure.
They had chemistry. He just didn't like that she didn't want to follow the rules and was getting away with not following the rules because the captain was sweet on her. And he fucking knew it, like, that was never like villain tension.
No.
It was like shitty office drama tension.
Yeah, and good at that. So there you've got the entire Starfleet, which is neat to see all the ships there over Earth and like that.
Yeah.
That's Starfleet. There's no major wars lately, and this is us at our full power in a post-scarcity society. Sure, if we choose to acknowledge the loss of Utopia Planitia, which Mars is still on fire if we are to believe season 1 of Picard, right? But
correct.
Here we are full steam, and for all of Federation space, it's just these ships here. It looks like a lot until you spread them out over like thousands of light years, but that's cool. And also is a real fuck you to the end of season 1. Like, there's Sovereigns, there's
nice different kind of ships all over.
Very important.
Yeah,
right. That's a big
different
part
classes,
of Star
Trek. Different mission profiles, different uses.
Cool ships in outer space, and that's a real slow jerk off. I'm like, fuck yeah, look at all these cool ass ships. And they initiate and they get in these formations, and it's like all of the ships all Borged out basically in front of Earth. And you're like, what could go wrong?
Well, it's about to go wrong because Jack shows up at the cube. The inevitable thing happens where, again, Ed Speleers does great with the material he has as Jack. And, he's there to try and kill the queen, but then realizes, of course, he has fallen into the trap that the queen has the capacity to control his actions. And in doing so...
Because, again, this flimsy-ass belief that a couple lines of DNA some real fucking Jurassic Park 4, Jurassic World writing here that, a little bit of DNA and now you're mechanically controlled. Ridiculous, but it's a bridge I'm willing to cross. I love that the Queen's Chambers is a fucking mess.
Yes.
It
The whole
looks like,
thing's a decaying mess,
yeah, later
falling
on,
apart.
they get on the ship and they start looking for me. Just seeing the drones decaying in their alcoves where it's just skulls with shit bolted on.
That she's still eating, that she's like eating their biological parts to stay alive. She's cannibalized the collective
Well, you
to
don't even get to
continue
see
her
her.
own existence.
You get her from the back, and the reveal of the Queen is always a big deal in Star Trek, and always it's this cliche bullshit where she's high above and then she comes down and her spine wiggles into a body, and then she's a sexy cat lady traipsing around blowing on people's arm hair and whatnot. Here you see her, she's elevated, she clearly looks deformed from the back. You don't get to see her face until the front, but this is a kingdom in ruin. Like you said, Jack figures out that turns out I can't shoot her after all, and then she seduces him with promises of being happy, and he just kind of chills out while like she Doc Ock and pales his brain and jacks him into the Matrix. And we switch back over to finding out that things are not going swell over at Frontier Day.
The Titan shows up. Picard gives his best effort to tell everybody, "Yo, we're about to get fucked up by the Borg somehow. Please listen." And Shelby seems to be entertaining it for a moment, but then all the communication gets cut. The transmission begins, and sure enough, as we have been explained by the plot, all of the young officers, everyone under age 25, very important specific element laid out within the conspiracy, starts to Borgify. We see two young lads on the Enterprise F just obliterate Shelby on screen before the transmission has ended. Just to leave no doubts, right? Get shot in the chest twice.
The only way you could be more dead is to end up in Voyager's sickbay, where you are pronounced to be for real dead and then shot out into space, so Lon Suter can never come back again.
We see the crew members of the Titan we've got to know, including the tactical officer, including the comms officer, including Geordi's daughter. Both of them actually turn into Borg, start taking over the ship. And the surviving crew from the bridge, which is basically just Raffi, Seven of Nine, and Shaw, are like, why didn't we get got? Well, it's because we're older. That's probably got something to do with it. And they can, when they finally,
because Seven and Shaw are older, and the Borg refuse to be in terrible actors, so they stay away from Raffi.
It's like when they don't assimilate the Kmart Klingons, the Kazon, like just no, we don't want.
Turns out, Raffi, you're 3/4 Kazon. That's why you're just a big piece of trash.
And they reunite with the TNG crew, trying to come up with a plan. And the plan becomes, we can't take the ship back. The one guy who got his ship back got it blown up for his trouble.
The Excelsior, man.
That's Excelsior. Where Elnor was.
Wait, who?
Elnor was assigned to the Excelsior, and then they blew it up.
Who's Elnor?
Space Legolas.
Oh, really?
He joined Starfleet in season 2, and he was on the Excelsior specifically.
I always loved the Excelsior. I would have loved to see what the Excelsior looks like in the current iteration. But yeah, the Excelsior, they overthrow the Borgified people. They break formation. And the Starfleet Armada fucking zaps him. And there he goes. He's off the board. Not the Excelsior. No! They go, all right, we found out that there's some sort of like maintenance channel that we can communicate on. And I don't know. It's an interesting analog versus digital moment here. It's the young versus the old in terms of age, in terms of technology,
in terms of experience and skill.
Communism. Everybody's been fucking awash in propaganda from social media. And
I was going to say, a literal woke mind virus infects the young officers, and only the boomer officers who know better can save them.
Mm-hmm. There's a reading between the lines
right there. That's exactly what the plot is. That is the plot. I'm not exaggerating.
Yep. That's the wink, wink, nudge. Like, hey, old money, we see you out there. They escape on a shuttle, but not before getting confronted in the hallway And all of a sudden, badass Worf, who has killed everybody and fucked everybody up in every fight, Rafi, who has won every fight, 7 of 9, who was perhaps the most practiced gun in the West. Oh, and Data, the ultimate marksman, get pinned down in this goofy hallway fight where they just can't overthrow 2 people standing right out in the fucking open.
Chest high walls. It's like Gears of War. And, this scene is constructed to do something very, 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 very specific. The show requires exactly the TNG crew to be on the shuttlecraft that Geordi's like, I got a plan. I know where we're taking us. That follow me. I figured out what we're going to do. Well, you can't have the not TNG crew on what's about to happen. They've got to stick around. They've got to have a B plot. So you have this shitty gunfight break out so that you can separate the two. But the thing that really gets them to separate, of course, is the most tragic loss of all. And this is that Shaw gets fucking killed by these 2 jabronis in the hallway. All these head wounds he's taken over these first 9 episodes. The man has been bleeding from his fucking eyebrows repeatedly.
This dude is living Archer's best life.
Absolutely.
All of season 3.
He wanted to copy the best captain there ever was. And then he meant, I have to get hit in the head as often as possible. These hard edges got to make me bleed. But he gets like jacked in the chest by a phaser shot and has his dramatic last gasp to give command to not Commander Hansen, but 7 of 9 and dies. I will say, Talos has said as clear as a bell. If he gets to do a second show, he's got a way to bring Shaw back. Like he died as a consequence of this story, thinking this would be, the only time. This is a one-off, and this was Shaw's popularity, and the popularity of him as the captain is something that he wants to continue. But for this purpose of the story, it works. He gets got. Now 7's got to lead the rest of the way.
Unfucking acceptable. This guy who is the only new character of any value that has come out across 3 fucking seasons of Picard, who they knew he was going to turn into a fan favorite, and I think that's why they front loaded him as such a rotten piece of shit in that first encounter with Picard and Riker at the table, where he's just a complete fucking prick.
They give him the biggest, baddest monologue of the season.
Sure, but you're going to have someone fucking die. Everybody is there, and the fact it is not Raffi, so fucking unforgettable. And when he dies, and it's like, 7, I see you, you're a person, I recognize you, you're in charge now. Like, this is how to do a great handoff where it's not like, I don't know, some like cringy Mary Sue, like, oh, I was just a dumb man and here you're the better. Like, it's a good character having a heartfelt moment with another good character. It doesn't feel like it's like, I now realize we need to have another female captain. Like, it's like, no, man, like this all makes sense. He could have been mortally wounded, like, oh gosh, I'm going to be in a Pike chair, or you know what, fuck it, I'm sick of getting wounded, I'm sitting this one out for, like, you could have taken him off the board without killing him. Killing him wasn't necessarily the wrong move, but killing him when Raffi was standing right there and you could have killed fucking Raffi.
Lost opportunities.
Massive fail.
You could have rid us of that menace forever. Now we know why they didn't, because they already, Terry Matalis already like tempted fate. He did not touch their relationship between her and 7 of 9. He just like barely acknowledged it happened. Like, so just fucking talk about that as little as possible, right?
So as much of a shame as it is that Shaw dies on the floor, none of that matters, man, because Geordi takes him back over what Antalis Prime or whatever,
Fleet Museum,
the old space dock is. It's now the Fleet Museum. Says, hey, listen, there's a problem. There's silly, iffy plot that all of the humans are now connected with the DNA, which mirrors the fact that all of the ships are connected, and the Borg own everything that's under 25 years of age, and we need to go offline. We need something analog. Gosh, what could it be? Could it be one of these dozens of ships circling there? We're going to get in that old Constitution class. We're going to knock the dust off Voyager with all its sweet Borg shields and all this other good stuff. Nah, fam. I got a surprise.
It makes so much sense that Geordi's hot rod in the garage is none other than the USS Enterprise NCC 1701D. It is the D, not a reconstruction of the D. No, that's the actual saucer that Troy piloted into the surface of Viridian 3. He mentions it, and that's like, that's actually the one. We had to take it off the planet because of the Prime Directive. We didn't want someone like wandering across it and like discovering advanced technology. So I had it towed in here, and I found some engines from an old retired Galaxy class ship. You know, go
The
ahead.
Syracuse.
Put that on there, and I've been
So by
restoring it ever
engines, he's
since.
talking about the star drive because obviously
the entire star drive section,
was destroyed. Where is the computer core in the Galaxy class?
I don't know.
Is it it's saucer?
It's probably
section,
got multiple ones, right? Because it has to be able to operate separated. So it probably has 2 computer cores. You know, like otherwise you can't operate the ship physically
damn it,
separated.
don't make me get my fucking red book out. Google, give me a picture. Come on. Galaxy class cross section. Here we go. All right, where's that fucking computer core at? This website's sold. It's got these tiny fucking thumbnails that you can't blow up.
Is there clear evidence either way?
I think you're right that there has to be at least 2 cores.
Yeah,
there's got to be.
I think just logically makes sense there's 2 computer cores.
Because here's what I'm saying, and I'm going to go back to it. It's stuff we talked about heavily. I think that the Enterprise was sentient. I think it knew it was smart enough to keep it on the DL. I think it had a crush on Geordi. That's why it seduced him with the Leah Brahms holodeck.
Obviously.
And I think that the brain of the ship is in the saucer, and even though you're putting a different star drive on there, he's right. It's still the D. The reveal for it, whatever money Metalis has saved and penny pinched by reusing as many sets as possible. The entire first couple episodes where it's Rafi on Metalis Prime, and it's the same fucking alleyway shot over and over, and that shit's so bad, and you're like, why is it just the same back alley over and over again? Because all that money had to go to some baller ass fucking CGI.
And not just... there is baller ass CGI. The look of the D and the fact that the surface of the edge of the saucer section is still torched because of the fact it went through the atmosphere on Viridian 3, but that the star drive, because it's from another ship, looks like pristine, or at least clean. Like all of those details are there. It just looks good in HD, man. It just looks good. But the money was actually spent to make the bridge.
Well, even before we get into the bridge, man, they pull in, they do the fly around this thing.
Oh, yeah.
And, man, my wife's sitting there, right? And, of course, this is where my kids decide to come in and start fucking acting up. So, like, they ruin my fucking moment. But, man, I saw that. I got the tears. I got all choked up. My wife's like, look at this fan service of fan service. Look at all this. Is it working on you? And I'm like, this is for me. This is for me. I couldn't tell you in this moment a single fucking thing that happened in the previous 3 seasons up to this point. As far as I'm concerned, this TV show just started right this fucking minute, and I am here for it. And for whatever I said before, that I don't need the old crew coming back on the bridge of the Enterprise and doing more Star Trek stuff.
Just lies.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was wrong 100 times over. I saw that this is just gratuitous fan service, and it went right into my fucking brain and touched me in ways that made me happy that I couldn't even fucking perceive. Just showing the outside of it, right? Like, look, we've got this model. We spent a lot of money making this fucking CG model. We're going to show it off. It's the ship you love. It's what you've been here for the entire fucking time. And now it is. And I knew this was coming, right? This all has been spoiled. That they're going to end up here.
Yeah, and it still hits you. Like, you can be told the Enterprise D comes back, but the way Metalis was able to create this scene is nothing short of perfect. To, like, Yes, here it is. You know what? The crew wasn't actually all together yet because there was one character that hadn't been resurrected. There was one character that you were missing. And Terry Matalas said as much as like, you have to bring the Enterprise D back. It is the heart of the show.
It's a character. And
It
that's
is a
something we've
character.
said on it. Voyager is a character. Deep Space Nine is a character. Enterprise, whatever, is a character.
Yeah, the NX-01 is a character for Enterprise as well. It does.
All
it
of
has
them.
a feeling all its own.
Character. It has a voice all its own. And they walk on the bridge, and I've got half a page of notes ready to go on that specifically that we'll get to. But man, seeing those fucking guys walk on the bridge, turn the lights on, that slow boot up of all the LCARS panels coming on like modularly, man, that got me in the fucking feels, dude.
Yeah. And imagine this is the only thing I wish you could have experienced is imagine being us watching this as it came out. Imagine getting to experience that without knowing that's what happens.
Yeah, imagine getting to see Luke Skywalker come back and not knowing that was going to happen either. Forbidden fruits to me, things beyond my.
You can see why everyone got so hype. You know, like the finale, everyone was vibrating in place waiting to hit because this is how episode 9 ended. And it's like, it's such a high, right? It's such a high.
They turn it on. If you're going to fucking go and recreate anything from scratch with AI, Majel Barrett's voice, that's the way to do it. Hey, computer.
They did not use AI. Those are spliced together lines they tried to do it in AI and it didn't sound right. So they just spliced together. That's why there's not as much computer voice. They spliced together existing lines from 2 other episodes to make.
I thought it was a perfect amount, man. They say, bring reinitiate that. Enterprise is like, mommy's back. And by the way, you're captain. And he's like, that's right, mommy. I am the captain.
Never wasn't. Yep. I mean, that's the secret. Like, never wasn't. Never didn't have it. They all have their moment. Worf, laments the weapons on the E being better, and Troy has to correct him. There's a joke about the fact that there's carpet. It's well lit. It's the Enterprise D, and let us not pass without saying it is a sterling recreation of the set. It is absolutely where all of the money went in the production was to actually create this just for, how it's used here. They hired Okuda to help rebuild it because it just didn't exist. It was gone. And so
turned into the bridge for Generations, and then it was destroyed in Generations.
So they had to rebuild it from scratch, and having the original set designer there to help do so is why it ended up being such a faithful recreation, up to and including like stuff that people don't do anymore to get the angles right on panels and all kinds of stuff. It just is the Enterprise D bridge. There's no other way to put it.
Picard, everybody pledges their allegiance to Picard, basically.
Heartfelt. I mean, just like when Riker comes down and says, we're the crew of the USS Enterprise, that's what hit me. That's when my emotions went into overdrive. Was like, Picard's like, we're about to go do some real fucking dangerous shit. Are you all really willing to do this? And like the way that Frakes comes down and like tells him like, do you remember who we are? Like, we are who you made us to be. We are the crew of this ship. We saved the fucking galaxy. That's how we do. We'll figure it out. We are the best who ever did this. Let's go. We got your back, boss. Let's finish the job.
Right. It's the conference room part 2. This is what we're here for. You got Geordi reprising his role up at the helm. Yet, interestingly, it's Data actually helming, apparently. I think if there was a miss in this moment, it's that the final line of dialogue wasn't, Picard saying, let's see what this galaxy class can do. Which I'm torn to say, that should either be our episode title or give me all that D.
I think we know what it has to be. But yeah, he gives the command to... everyone assumes their stations. Picard finally assumes the destiny that this season was building him back to, which is he's got to be the man in command of the ship. That is the thing he was built to be. It is the thing that he is better at doing than anyone else has ever done it. So he's going to take command of the situation and the ship. He even does the Picard maneuver, straightens his shirt after he gets into his command chair and issues the commands to engage at warp to return to Earth. And the soundtrack of this episode also starts with some real like Mass Effect-y synth vibes, very effective, like refreshed, newer sounding Trek music. And it's not a surprise, it kind of has a Mass Effect vibe to it. But when you get into this part of the episode, it's all classic themes. They finally bring in the Next Generation theme more and more. And then it crescendos into just a big, dun, 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 like, we're doing it. The boys are in the D and they're coming. And they just have the big buildup and it warps away, right? And
What's
that's where
that?
they cut the episode.
You thought the Enterprise was crashed? No, it's back. You thought Data got murdered off? No, it's back. We're ramrodding it all. Tell me we're wrong. Tell me we're wrong. You can't. I do like that Geordi mentions to Worf, I've got drones loading torpedoes in the bay. Not that you can really count it as canon, the Static Warp episode where Bev's basically piloting the ship by her, like commanding the ship by herself. We know Enterprise is highly automated.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, is there a contingent of Soong type android drones staffing the ship at this point off camera?
I think the intention is that the ship is largely being commanded as it has in the past, which is just with a skeleton bridge crew. And there's really no one else on there.
But
they
I'm
load
saying,
the weapons and then
I'm just curious, are drones being used in any capacity post the Mars incident by season 3? Because don't they lift the ban on research?
They do. So theoretically, there could be some kind of semi-intelligent life that is there, but they leave that question unremarked and unanswered.
If in season 1, Picard is 7 to 8% of the character he was previously in the movies, right? You get into season 3, and I would say he's about 75% of the character you remember from season 7. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's Patrick Stewart goes, okay, I've been fine. All right, I'll do the thing. I'll be the guy. I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's the backdrop of him sitting in the seat and seeing tactical overhead and having the guys in front of him that completes the picture. I don't know if it's him being on that set and like the old brain remembering, all right, this is how I do the thing. But like, it goes right back to 100. Whatever meek, voiceless horse thing we saw in season 1 that I was just like, listen, man, he's too old. He can't do it. This character, they waited too long to do it. It's impossible for Patrick Stewart to hit these fucking notes. I was wrong.
We were both wrong. We both said that. And it turns out he had it in him all along.
I think that ass just needed to be in the chair to be like, all right, here's the thing. I'm going to do it.
And I think it really worked, though, that for the entire season, he was avoiding this. He was avoiding having to take command. He was ready to let others, to serve as an advisor, to serve as a guide, but he wasn't the captain.
Yeah, man. Jump back to Riker on the Titan and Picard trying to coach him and being like, this is your ship. I don't want to be the guy in the chair. That's you. But he's like, this is my fucking boat. It's my chair. And it's exactly what you said. Like, I didn't want to do this anymore. I thought I had moved on, but like, there is a gun to the head of humanity, and we are going to fucking do this right now. I'm curious how the cast took all of this, like, and you'd never know the truth, or I don't know. I guess you get far enough away from the money event, and people start talking more candidly at these conventions. Like, if there was a resignation for people, like, God, I don't want to. I've tried to distance myself all the years from being this. Like, I didn't want to be back on the bridge. I didn't want to be sitting in these chairs. I didn't want to be wearing the space suit. Here we are doing it. Or if like at a certain level, these guys really were like, all right, it's fun. The band's back together. Let's fucking people are eating this shit up. Like,
I mean, the way that Frakes described it when he did Shuttlepod 1, which was when Patrick Stewart decided to come back and do Picard, he invited the TNG crew to dinner at his house and told them personally, I'm doing this without you. I've got this thing I want to do. This is the story I want to tell. I'm not bringing you guys into it. And you deserve to hear that from me. And everyone accepted it because he was, he's Sir Patrick Stewart. He's a Shakespearean actor. He's the star, and he's going to get to do what he wants to do. And it was Metalis, obviously, as we've remarked, that convinced him that was wrong all along. And in fact, like and Frake said, I think that Patrick was convinced he had figured that out even well before that, because he was brought in season 1. So was Marina. So was Brent. Like that resolve didn't even survive First Contact, and when they after season 1 was a misfire and season 2 wasn't looking like it was coming together, is when Metalis had finally was like, you need to go back on this thing, and he agreed, and again, like, personally asked everyone to come back, and that's why they agreed. Is Stewart turned to them and said, I was incorrect. You need to be here. We need to do this together. And I think this is justification for all of that having occurred.
You ready to talk about the bridge for an hour?
Let's go, my friend. I mean, what are we but an indulgent pair?
I love the bright lights.
Yeah. I love that they waited until now to have bright lights. Like that it made it more special that this D is correctly lit, because everything else was too dark.
What a rejection of all New Trek. Seeing everybody in there old as fuck, fat as hell. Brett, I'm looking at you. I'm also acknowledging myself. All right. Seeing all these guys under the most harsh fluorescent lights possible, and it looks great. It doesn't look bad. It does, and maybe it's because I've been watching Orville this whole time, which just reinforces you can have a well-lit set that still conveys drama and suspense and all that other stuff, which you already fucking knew, because Next Gen went 7 seasons of giving us a bright, well-lit set, and so did Voyager. Nothing was lost in this dark, brooding Batcave Discovery genre. You don't need it. I like the bright lights. This is also our first look at the bridge in full high def.
Yeah, and it looks good.
I take that back. It's not even Discovery that started the fucking trend. It was really Generations, right?
It's true. Generations had a much lower lighting.
But it's high def. It looks great. I don't know what the original set would have looked like. There was a junk ball transmission. I put the link for it up on the trauma support group. The one where the fucking True North Sheriff McTaggart or whatever is up at helm. I think that was Stratagema.
Yeah.
It looks great. I should have asked my wife like what her impression of the set looked like, if it was hokey or whatever. Like, and that there's so much going on by showing that bridge, right? Think about when in character the Galaxy class rolled off the line, what we were saying before, what Starfleet embodied at that time.
Right.
A belief that a luxury cruise liner full of civilians could go out into deep space and be okay. And the optimism and hope that went with it. Starkly contrast that with, the Titan and the stuff you're seeing there, like completely different universes almost, right?
Yeah, and it speaks to almost a meta commentary about the hope and optimism of the 90s versus the current sort of cynicism of today, right? The D is beloved because it represents that
hope.
Yeah, that better period.
That you have 7 or 8 people on the bridge, and that's enough to keep everything under control. All the other bridges since then have like put in as many other stations and duty posts and made them like look busy, and like the CIC from Battlestar Galactica.
More dynamic on screen. That's like the real reason.
Sure. And here's this just chill, carpeted, padded, walled lounge, basically, right? And here at like the darkest hour of the Federation, it's that icon of the Roddenberry Better Tomorrow utopia that is going to be the savior that's going to shrug off the dark times that have fallen on Earth directly. Like, real strong stuff if you want to sit there and pick this stuff apart.
And it doesn't look cheap either. I think that's a real key element here. It looks good on HD because they took the time to build it correctly. And if you haven't, Peter, I want to recommend, like, Okuda does a whole walkthrough of like each station.
Oh yeah, man, I'm gonna get balls deep on all this stuff.
Get 100% of your balls in there.
Again, give me all very of the deep. D pot. I want the D in me. I want the D on my face as much. The D touching my eyeballs as much as possible. The reference by Geordi that you got to go analog, you got to go old school. How crazy it is to think that the crowning achievement, the Starfleet flagship Enterprise D, like, could be a dated thing that is considered old, right?
Mm-hmm.
Years and years of seeing the D and like, oh, this is the coolest spaceship, and like, no, man, this thing's an old fucking piece of shit. Not piece of shit, but like, this is old. This is retro. And then like kind of the reflection, like, yeah, man, it's been what, 35 years since that thing premiered back in 87 or whatever. Like, this is old stuff in character. It's old stuff in universe. In real life.
Yeah.
The decision for Geordi to bring the D to the state it ended in season 7 and not to its final moments in Generations, right? Generations, it had stairs bringing it down from the command deck. The port and starboard side utility panels were replaced by like duty stations.
Yeah, there was like little ramps there where people were standing
packed full of IEDs.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw them go off too. They were some potent IEDs.
There was a chair for Worf. Like, I think that Geordi would have to look and be like, how did this ship look the majority of the time that I spent time on there? Night shifts, this and that, as I moved up into command, like, to choose that, like, this, what version of home do I want to make home? Where were the best memories at? I'm curious how quality that set was in terms of out of character production. Like, if you were to take the set from this episode, Vox, and compare that to where it was on season 7, like, in terms of quality build, I'd have to imagine that the old TNG set was like more sturdy and built better. What do you think?
Well, based on the video of the CUDA, it's actually built to the same specifications. And that's actually a lot of the content, which is to say, how did you recreate this thing? How did, like, this is wood, like, this isn't cheap plastic that you make and look like wood on camera. Like, it just took some craft to make it. And it was very expensive. And that is where all of Metallis's budget for the whole season went. He even talked about how, like, so many reuses in the hallways of prior sets that were barely redressed. So they just didn't have to spend money on anything that they didn't have to, so they could rebuild the thing as faithfully as possible. Because they also knew that if they did that, they'd use it again. Like, this is built now. Paramount has another Enterprise D. Like, it's not the last time you'll see it, that's Metallis's thought.
The Gene Roddenberry conundrum, like, I only have so much money to build stuff. Like, no engineering, no transporter pad, no shuttle bay. Like, they got on the ship through the shuttle bay, right? Or they beamed on, but like, it's not until they walk in. You might as well think they just transported directly in the bridge for the memberberries to hit them hard. How fucked would it have been if, again, tying back to the fact that everybody's like, oh, yeah, you're Captain Picard. You're not a clone of Captain Picard or a doppelganger. Like, we have chosen of all the fake Captain Picards we've encountered, it's okay. We endorse you as a real human being, right?
Mm-hmm.
If like, hey, like, Data's our friend and you are a copy of our old friend and you're an assumed type body, like, we're cool with AI. For Geordi to be like, and I got one more surprise for you guys. Computer, initiate security. And then, like, I'm Tasha Yar. I'm a hologram. I'm here to help.
Fuck it, let's go.
Would that have been a bridge too far to cross? If you're going to get the gang back together, get them all back together. I also noticed through this that, like, for all the call outs for, like, you got Rolaren, you got Shelby. No talk about Barclay, huh?
Apparently he didn't want to do it.
Ooh, look at him, old and crotchety.
Yeah. But yeah, there was Metallis also said, like, a lot of his ambition had to be curtailed because it basically took all of their money to get Michelle Forbes and Tim Russ and everyone else. Like
Tim Russ out there looking for a payday.
Well, I mean, he didn't have much. That's just it. Like
I
he
can
had
see
to pay.
Michelle Forbes being like, "No, I want money."
He got a lot of people just to take Scale, which is pretty crazy. And
Scale today is signed headshots at the convention tomorrow, though, man.
And that's got to be part of the calculus of everyone who ended up in this.
I don't think they're paying taxes on that.
Also, like Tim Russ has got his eyes directly on doing Legacy, right? Like I can be the admiral who is dispatching 7 of 9 to do shit.
Is there any mention of Janeway at all anywhere other than the recommendation when they make her captain?
Their original plan was to have Janeway promote 7, but they could not afford Kate Mulgrew. So just the mentions and dialogue of her is all they could do. Tim Russ money, not Kate Mulgrew money.
She's doing whatever her cartoon is, so she's already got work.
There was a lot of regret to not have given him the capacity to do this, by the way. And just what Metalis had to share was like he used what he had at the time, but there was a lot of, hey, why didn't you call me afterwards when the shit was super hot and everyone was watching it? And it's like, because I didn't have the money. That's why I didn't call you.
Does he name names on that?
No, of course not. He's still trying to get this shit done. He probably is because it's just been that well received.
Mm-hmm.
Like the talk is that it's going to happen. It's just a matter of Kurtzman's ego slowly getting soothed.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that. I maintain no hope on this thing. Literally though, like whatever this show was, even within season 3 prior to this point, does not exist. Like in this moment when they bring this out, like this is a great episode, and I think you could have just came in. Think if all that shit was season 1. Think if this is where season 1 started by episode 3.
I think actually I will defend the choice that you don't end you end the series on what you're about to do. You don't begin there. I think that the lost opportunity was just in telling a story of Picard slowly trying to like guide things in the background and helping his former subordinates deal with problems and assisting the next generation of Starfleet officers to come into their own. And then you do have your finale has to be this.
Well, yeah, I mean it's the
but
Metroid.
It's special because you spent so much time getting here.
It's Metroid too, The D is the final gun that zaps the bad guy one time and kills it. Like,
yeah, he's the hyper beam.
You can't get that right off the bat. Picard saying, get us out of here, flying out of space dock, going off to warp. Perfect. And also, too, with the advanced CGI, and as you're especially going to see in the next episode, the things they do with the D that you have never been able to do before to ridiculous levels where...
Oh, yeah. It's pure fan service levels.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, is this a Galaxy class? Is this one of the biggest things that humanity has ever created that's mobile, or is this a fucking TIE fighter? What's going on?
Well, what is that last episode, Peter? Are you ready to talk about it?
We go into what might as well be season 3, episode 2.
Season 3, episode...
Forget about that crusty ass bitch that got shattered. I had to think, I was like, what happened to her? I'm like, all right, they blew her out of the fucking airlock and then she got busted up on an asteroid or whatever. Season 3, episode 10, The Last Generation. Written by Terry Matalas. And yeah, he's all
Terry
good
wanted
things.
the last one to himself. This is written and directed by Terry Matalas. He's like, you know what? I've done the impossible, and I'm going to take the giant thing of Star Trek cocaine, and I'm going to do it in front of everybody, and that's just what's going to happen.
I'm going to line all this coke up on this D, and I'm going to run my face right down it, and everybody's going to love watching me put my face on the D as I put the D in your face.
The last episode of Picard is just an episode of Next Generation.
Well, yes.
That's what it is, right? Like
the thing you didn't think you want, it's a thing you wanted. So before these episodes start, there's like this Star Trek, the Mandalorian, they show all the different helmets and this. Star Trek's got this thing where it's a ship whipping around and then it makes the Starfleet chevron or whatever. And instantly I'm like, oh shit, they fucking swapped whatever the ship was before. I had to go back and watch. It had been the previous, season 3, it had been the Titan doing that. And I noticed when you watch it, the Shrike, whatever it was, looming off in the distance like the bad guy threat. And now it's the fucking D looking tits whipping around, and as it crosses over the Rainbow Bridge or whatever, you catch a fucking Borg cube chilling out in a fucking nebula, and you're like, oh shit. I'm fucking ready, man.
And we get the last of perhaps the unexpected cameos right off the bat. And that is the voice of the current president of the Federation 1, Anton Chekhov, who is canonically the son of Pavel Chekhov, and importantly, voiced by the one and only Walter Koenig. And it is a desperate plea on emergency transmission that catches up the plot, right? Instead of doing a previously on, they're doing this. Great.
Which is the right way to do it.
Yeah.
Enterprise, I'm talking to you. Enterprise, previously on.
The arc, previously on. Not feeling those. This was apparently an audible on the part of not Terry Metalis solely, but Todd Stashwick, who knows Walter Koenig. And because they apparently live in the same LA neighborhood, and said, hey, I bet I could get him to do this. And they brought in the material, the recording studio to Koenig's apartment and recorded it there. And great. It works, right? Like the idea that the son of a major 23rd century Star Trek hero, wound up a politician and had his own career in life and is leading the Federation. I buy it. It's named Anton Chekhov as a sort of nod to the guy who played Chekhov in the JJ reboots, who sadly passed away.
Under the most gruesome of circumstances.
Yeah. Got crushed by his own car. Boo. And it catches you up on the plot. Earth is in danger. Sol Station is presently fending off the entire Federation fleet, but it is only a matter of time before it overtakes it.
Which I don't know if that's like impressive for Sol Station or if it's like
an indictment of the Federation's weaponry.
Like, well, come on, what? Some
real
plot armor there.
The backstory on Sol Station is apparently that the space dock, Sol Station apparatus, and the planetary shields got more buff because of something that happens in DS9 that I don't want to spoil. There's a reason that Metalis had in mind for giving like the massive buff to Sol Station.
The Metaliverse, is that what we're gonna go with here?
It's Metalis like understanding the lore but not wanting to burden the plot with it, which I kind of understand.
If Earth falls, we all fall. Why is Earth so important? Obviously, we're building big stakes here. I would, again, it's not really Picard season 1. I mean, they established this across the board that Romulus goes down.
The whole empire falls. Yeah.
Basically drags the entire empire with it. So clearly, the Federation was not taking notes through all of that, and all of their eggs are in one basket. Although, at the same time, when Romulans lost Romulus, they didn't also lose their entire fleet, which would move on to hunt down everybody else. I guess that's really it. They're going to take out Earth, and then
they're going to own Starfleet at the same time. Like
they already own Starfleet, and they're going to use the full might of a unified Starfleet armada to hammer whatever hasn't been assimilated. That's a dangerous proposition.
The D realizes they're on their own, and that they're going to have to fix this. And doing so means finding wherever this. They're useless to try and engage the fleet, right? They're not going to win that battle. So what can we do? And that is, well, let's find where the signal's coming from. And they determine it is occurring at Jupiter, literally within the eye of Jupiter. So they warp there. And, it's a classic Trek episode when you have basically a long teaser that sets up the stakes. And, Picard is like, we are ending this tonight. This is we'll fuck these guys. And they find the giant Borg superstructure within Jupiter. And it is, as we mentioned, it is the remaining collective. It's all that's left of the Borg is there. It's all of the cubes stitched together as the queen cannibalizes what's left.
Is it multiple cubes?
Yes. You can kind of see it in the construction because it's uneven. And when it starts blowing apart, you can see the individual cubes break off and explode.
Maybe I need to go back and rewatch this. There's a lot of Borg stuff I had not made connections on. That's cool. I would say it's a very Mass Effect scene, seeing this massive Borg with tons of antenna, like a broadcast.
Yeah, it's turned into a broadcast antenna.
Jutting out of the clouds of Jupiter. And, you know, when Enterprise finally arrives, like, you know, there's this, again, great looking shot of Enterprise and like the tips of these broadcast antennas, and then the camera just pans back and you just see, like, again, one of the biggest ships ever created in Star Trek, a Galaxy class, just completely fucking dwarfed in scope. And again, this fantasy art almost element of like clouds rolling over the Borg parts.
Very evocative. Absolutely.
I think that'd be a really good background wallpaper for a computer. I'm going to have to look into getting a screen grab of that. Meanwhile, over on the Titan, they've regained control.
Yeah, we've got a B plot where the Titan crew, which at this point is all of your boomers that are on the ship, which is the two heavies from security, the doctor, the Trill doctor that we have met before.
Not very good at her job, but apparently she's good behind a phaser, so she's got that going.
She's handy with a gat. She can.
in the Metalloverse, all medics are combat medics, as we'll find out.
There's of course Raffi, who is still here, did not get killed. That should just be Shaw, and the MVP of the episode, which is the cook, who's just some random alien guy. Who
is that? Terry Metalis in makeup?
No. It's some guy. I looked him up to the actor. He posted to Twitter. I was like, "Oh, so excited to be in this!" And yeah, he's like, "I didn't even finish lunar flight training because I had to run my mom's deli. Are you seriously expecting me to pilot the Starship?" And Seven's like, said, "Yes, you're a Starfleet officer. Sit down and fly the ship. Do it. We're doing this. This is what you signed up for. You're in space. Get over it."
Back over at Jupiter. It's clear that they're going to have to do what Enterprise always has to do. Beam over to the fucking Borg ghost town.
Yeah, beam onto the cube and do things. Now, you know, the stakes are...
Here's the deal, right? Here's the fucking dilemma for Picard. This ain't the Morgue. Right?
It's the Borg. Yeah.
It's a Borg. This isn't their ne'er-do-well, but
Swedish
well-intentioned cousins.
No.
This is the Bravo, B for Bravo, uppercase Borg. But it is a Borg morgue, as they will find out.
That was very clever.
I know.
It's like our Han and Leia moment. That was very clever. I know.
Picard has basically his farewell speech to everybody. And this is like do or die. We got to finish this off tonight. And Riker, even though your wife's right there looking at me and I know you got kids at home, you can come with me. Who was the first away team over there? Would have been Riker led, right? Riker, correct. Data, and Worf probably. So we're not quite hitting the same notes here, but it's going to be Worf. It's going to be Riker. It's going to be me. Data's like, hey, I think they really neglect the fact that Data is like the most fucking advanced thing
ever
in the universe.
Yeah,
right?
like
he's like, hey, you should take me. I know my way around there. I got all sorts of fucking experience.
I got tricks. I'm
like, what's the highest level in XCOM? Soong type android. You're one too, but you're like the shitty California legit version. I'm fucking not street legal.
I'm a full bird colonel. Let's go.
Mm-hmm. I can still rip people in fucking half. So can Worf. It should be me. He's like, no, I need you over on the ship for, I don't know, plot reasons. Interesting that he picked Geordi to be left in charge, but I mean, Geordi is still a Commodore, so I guess if there's any semblance of Starfleet here, and it's not just... Also, the family speeches in this, like, we're cresting right up against fucking Fast and Furious. Like, it might as well been
It's about family. It's about family.
Just take Vin Diesel and put him in that black jacket with the Admiral pin, and he could have pretty much delivered all of Picard's lines verbatim.
I do like the choice of putting Geordi in charge because he was a captain of a starship. He's a Commodore now. He's the second highest ranking out of all.
He's the reason they even have the fucking D.
Yeah, I have the thing. Like, honestly, it should be him who has the con in this circumstance. And it's particularly poignant because it's not something he ever did in the show, right? Like, Geordi was never a command figure in TNG. And now here at the pinnacle, we're going to see a in command Geordi, which is very different.
Yeah, and also too, I think Picard has to realize on a certain level that like Data lore did almost just completely fuck them all into the dirt, and like maybe he's not fully recovered.
I mean, you know what? His technical expertise is specifically why he's left behind. It does not make sense to put him in charge, right? Like,
sure,
you're going to be focused on doing whatever you need to do to like fuck with what the Borg are up to because you're the smartest thing ever to exist. But the man who gives the orders about where to put the fucking ship should probably be Geordi because he understands it better than anyone anyway. He literally
I know that we should not keep invoking the first season of Picard, right?
I think the first season's okay to invoke. They
you
clearly
have to.
Yeah, they clearly use the plot.
This not hokey. This fabricated, deep, paternal feeling that season 1 told us that Picard had for Data, and it just does not exist in the lightest.
Yeah,
here
because it shouldn't. It should never have existed.
Yeah. And the way that Picard and Data interact with each other, specifically the way Picard treats Data, I'm not saying he treats him like a fucking doormat or anything, but he's a crew member. It's not like, oh, my child.
Yeah.
This is the way it should have been the whole time. It's the way it was. It's the way it still is. He's not picking like, oh, I did spend an entire season tearing the universe apart, trying to find your daughter out of this guilt-fueled sadness. It's like, no, man. Geordi's in charge. And you're staying on the ship. Daddy talked. That's what it is. And then Troy's all like, oh shit, Will, I'm not going to see you again, am I? He's like, I don't know.
Gonna give it a shot here. Mm-hmm. We're doing dangerous space things. We all just did say we would do this. We're doing it.
Also, they had, Riker at the end of the last episode walking in like, we're the crew of the Enterprise. And Picard's like, I'm hesitant to ask you all for such a great thing. It's like, it's Armageddon. Like, yeah. If we don't die on whatever your fucking Mass Effect 2 suicide mission is, we're probably going to be hunted down and just fucking nuked from orbit because the Borg Starfleet is just going to obliterate everything and just go full Terminator on us. So, yeah, obviously we're in on this.
That's a little less inspiring than saying we're the crew of the USS Enterprise.
Because Riker has charisma and he's great at public speaking and he knows how to fucking play to a room.
It's true. It's definitely not something they made up. It's not fiction. Okay, sorry.
They beam over to the Borg cube, and if there is a attention to detail that gets skipped here, they use the new transporter effect. I think they really should have went with the old school TNG.
True. It is a missed opportunity for a little visual reference, but they get on there. We already kind of talked about this part. They're discovering that the Borg cube has been slowly decaying and its residents are not alive.
Borg, not Morg. A real testament to what a shit show Voyager's portrayal of the Borg was. It's clear that everything's being done here on a budget, but man, they make it fucking work. And I don't know how many angles they film the same little like crusty warehouse they're in to like sell the Borg, but like there is zero hint of the fucking Qzar laser tag arena that Voyager presented as your average.
Yeah, it feels like
Borg
a Borg
environment.
Cube. Yeah.
A scary ass haunted house, Hellraiser, and again, all the fucking dudes like laying over in various states of decomposition. No spandex in sight. These Borg all look great. A+.
Meanwhile, on the Titan, They've come up with a plan that the only way to break line of sight is to vanish from the mind's eye.
Oh yeah, we've got a cloaking device, don't we?
Yeah, we hijacked that from Star Trek 4. Like, literally. So fire that bad boy up, break line of sight, and now we can actually shoot at the fleet. So their plan can't do anything except try and help Enterprise do whatever they're going to do. That means distracting these guys long enough because they are putting a beating on Starbase 1. We see the fleet taking it to the rim on Starbase 1, and it's not going to make it.
Do you remember at the end of Picard season 1 when Riker shows up with the same ship a million times over?
Yeah, the copy paste fleet.
And then it's like, oh, cool, there's going to be a big, like, fleet battle, and you don't get that. You get it here.
Yeah.
You ever seen 200 individual phaser beams at the same time on screen? It's dope. This is what I need the new Stellaris to be. What is it? Star Trek?
Star Trek Infinity?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll definitely get that. If Stellaris is any guide.
I need this.
So their plot, the B plot here, the Titan plot is pretty minor. But it's them giving their best shot at trying to distract the fleet and get them to stop attacking Starbase 1 and give them something else to shoot at. The Enterprise is just kind of chilling for the moment until they get rocked by some weapons fire from the cube, which is
hold on. I want to go back. Here's the B plot real quick, right? Seven's in charge. We got to distract him. Scan as many ship locations as you can because we are going to fade out. And it's nice they don't like call attention like, oh, this is an old Fenris Ranger trick or whatever. Seven at this point like is almost unrecognizable to what she was in Voyager. I don't think it's a bad portrayal of her, but I think she has evolved as a character to the point where there's none of the old Seven there, right? Her emotions are fully manifested. There's doubt, there's fear, but there's a passionate resolve.
I think that you're right in that it's more. There's been more evolution with her. I think her season 3 portrayal is right because the idea is like, well, 30 years later, 7 of 9 is not going to be the same robot lady she was in her 20s. She's in her 50s now. She's been a not robot longer than she was a robot. So she's probably learned to have like real emotions, even if they are occasionally a bit disjointed. And that's what you see here is a 7 of 9 who's fully has the range of human experience, but is still figuring out, because she had a late start, how to navigate it.
Maybe they were afraid of stepping on Data's toes because Data plays the character of, I used to be a perfect robot and now I'm contending with my own emotions and the impact that has on me. And I still would have liked to see that of her. Like a quick side note to Raffi, like her freaking out a little bit, like, what I wouldn't give to be back in my 20s and have that arrogance that everything was going to be fine. And that we like, I'm freaking out. And like, if there was ever a place to correctly use Raffi, it would have been like, congratulations, you're a real girl now, and you're doing great. You go, girl. Like that would have been perfect. But again, I think it would have been too close to Data and they were trying to tell Data's story here. So their plan is to map out, cloak, uncloak, light their asses up and hit and fade, right? And it is balls to the wall action. When the Titan finally pulls a stunt and they uncloak, flying full impulse, and the phasers are going. This episode could have been nothing but this scene of the Titan flying, all of its phasers lit up. All I want to see is the fucking phaser, and I want to see the phaser blast moving along that bank, right?
Yeah, that strip, the phaser array.
That's how the phasers work. They never do it. They're doing it. It's awesome. I love it. You get like 3 or 4 good shots of that going on, and I'm like, fuck yes. Like, just
that's good. If you think that's good,
that's what I thought. I was like, this is great. Clearly, the Enterprise isn't going to engage the Mega Cube. That's ridiculous. They're getting all the good combat out here with the Titan. The phasers are moving on the strip. This is awesome.
Meanwhile, we finally do get to see the Enterprise D throw some heat. So at some point, the cube starts lobbing shots at them, and they've got to return fire and blow up the turrets that are shooting at them. And Crusher is the one that's behind tactical, and Geordi's like, listen, you're gonna have to manually target. Like, there's no cheating today. Like, you're gonna just have to shoot these things. And he's a little trepidatious that the doc can pull it down, but of course she's lived the harsh life.
Well, first you got, again, Data on helm, but she's running out of ops. And for all of Riker's the best pilot, and Picard's a great pilot, and fucking Wesley, which thankfully there's hide nor hair of fucking Will Wheaton anywhere in this episode.
Yeah.
He only gets thrown out as like I fucked up on Wesley, but then I fucked up on Jack by trying not to fuck him up like I fucked up Wesley. Data starts moving the Enterprise in ways you didn't know a galaxy.
We're not there yet. Because there's the initial strafing run is just on the outside.
That, I was like, wow, look at the fucking Enterprise go. It's like moving up and down between antennas, and it's, wow, look at that. And then, yeah, up there's Crusher, who, we were introduced this season like, I'm the doctor who now knows how to use a gun.
And she does. You see the Enterprise D throw some fucking heat, man. You see this thing launch some earth-shattering phaser volleys. It's dropping torpedoes like mines on the surface of this thing. Like, it's going, man. It is. The old girl's got some fight in her. Like, Geordi undersold it.
She basically unzips her pants and takes her D out and drags it right across Tasha Yar's face, and then thrusts it into Worf's eyeball and says, there's always been, 16 phaser arrays, I want to say?
Yes.
And they can shoot at the same time. And also there's 2 photon torpedo launchers, and they can shoot at the same time. And this is how you fucking do it. It is magic. And again, it's stuff that anybody's ever looked like a tech manual or held them out, or you're like, look at all these goddamn guns on this thing. Why don't they shoot at the same time? Because they didn't have the budget, or they didn't have, half the time they had fucking like ILM guys that are like having phasers shoot out of the Bassard collectors. Like, there's no phaser array there. Why is a phaser shooting out of the fucking photon torpedo launcher? Man, she lights up. And at first I was like, man, come the fuck on. And then for whatever like humor was off in the first couple episodes, especially with Worf, when they all stop and look back at her like, what? And she's like, it's been a hard 10 years or whatever. It's been a hard 20 years. And you're like, yeah, story checks out. And like, this is the best act. I love the way they treat Crusher this entire time. Like, she's competent. She's coming up with things. She's got hope.
She's got a plot. I mean, she gets to act. She doesn't like... She's better used here than she was most of her time on TNG.
That's what I'm saying. She's like, I'm not here to fuck ghosts. I'm here to fuck people up. And it's, so there's this like combat medic part of her, and there's still like this, I'm a crazy good scientist, and I see things other people aren't paying attention to, and I'm saving the day with medicine, and I'm also fucking up board ship with guns. Like, that's really amazing stuff that Troy and Crusher are both presented in such flattering light consistently through this whole thing.
And that's Metalis like having a better touch there. Like, again, why is he doing the show? Because it's Jerry Ryan got him the job, right? Like, Jerry Ryan made this happen. Well, I mean, obviously he's probably like sweet on the female characters a little bit given that, right? Like, well, let's take this underdeveloped material and these 2 main cast that never got to like really shine as well as they could have.
Especially in the movies.
To make sure they do. Yeah, and criminally underused Crusher in the movies. I mean, at least Troy had plot in all 3 of them. But, or 4 of them. But Crusher never had any plot.
Also,
Crusher
real quick.
She got a paycheck and left.
What was one of the starships in the Earth Armada? Did I hear the name Pulaski get thrown out?
USS Pulaski, you sure did.
Nice call out.
Yeah, you got to mention her. Like,
sure,
we had a Tasha Yar moment. We got to have a Pulaski reference.
Over on the board cube, Picard's like, hey, I'm here to die, by the way. I got to go save my son. You guys go take the transponder thing, knock that out. I'm going to go try and diplomacy my kid free. Peace out. And
he has a heartfelt farewell to Riker. That's probably like his best moment,
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know you've been my brother. Thank you. It's the kind of recognition that's hard for him to make, and he makes it.
Worf, strong portrayal there too. You know, 2 words Klingons don't know, and it's defeat and it's goodbye. And that's that lack of
It works.
Him refusing to get sappy, it jives with him like being like, I wish we had the E because E had better guns. Like, I'm not here for the emotional. I'm not here for the emotions, right? It's yet at the same time, you know, recognizing his Chadich. Off Picard goes, and we finally get the Borg Queen reveal. That is the best of all Borg Queen reveals, and it's, hey, I'm not a sexy torso with a whippy-doo spine. Like, I am the Queen alien in Aliens, and it is grotesque.
Jack's all Borged up. He's
looking real slick.
You know, looking real like RoboCopy.
Looking real Locutus. I mean, it's Locutus.
Riker and Worf find the transponder control mechanism so they can. Their intention is to send that information off to the Enterprise so it can find it within the cube. The 2 remaining only partially zombified Borg wake up at their interference, and we get Worf getting one last chance to throw down with some drones. He gets shot in the shoulder, and they have to take refuge behind the console that they were fucking with. And that's when Riker's like, you know, Worf's like, the sword, and Riker tries to lift it. He's oh shit! I didn't know it was so heavy. I had no idea.
The physical humor there, perfect. And again, yes. for however Worf had been misused a little bit with like humor and stuff, like Frakes there to punch it up.
Yeah,
I rewatched that scene 3 times. I thought it was fucking hilarious. Shit, I didn't know this, which makes sense. You know, I mean, fucking Klingons are super strong, so like, right. Yeah. And then he like pulls the handle out, and there's like a glowy thing, and he's like, "The fuck is this?" So then, you know, Riker pops out behind, pops both the Borg because they don't have time to get their shields up. Fuck again, the humor. Riker is like, "You got a fucking gun the whole time," and you're like, "Swords are fun." 10 out of 10.
That's exactly like, yes, Klingon warrior would say that. So no, yes, swords are fun. I get to kill my enemies with my hands. I don't just realize.
Not swords, shields can't adapt to swords. Not like a logical, tactical reason. The sword is fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
I did like that also throughout this entire episode. Worf is like kind of giddy that like, I'm going to die here. This is it. I'm going to go to Super Valhalla. Like, we have realized some dreams today. Like
Stovacor. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we're taking the express boat to Stovacor. We die on this mission. Let's go.
I've been through some crazy shit before, but I mean, this is good. This is a super cube. Like, I've been on a lot of Borg cubes before. This is by far the biggest. I've been on a lot of cubes. This is a scary cube. Trust me. If there's a cube to die on, it's this cube.
When they get the coordinates back on the D, they are despaired because it's like looks impossible to fly the D into where the transmitter array is. But
because it's a Death Star.
It's a Death Star
run.
It is a Death Star run, and Data makes the fucking D fly like the Millennium Falcon. Like, suddenly, as if from nowhere, he's like, I got this. Let's go. And you see a sequence of
even before that,
everybody's like jiving inside this fucking cube.
A computer couldn't do it. Even my daughter couldn't do it with a computer. How are we ever going to get this to happen? And he's like, excuse me. I'm the most fucking perfect thing. I'm sitting here in front of the fucking steering wheel. They're like, no, Data, you couldn't do it. And he's like,
right in front of me? Bitch, I can do it. You got any other options? No? All right, I'm doing it. Okay. So yeah,
they're talking like, hey, well, maybe you can just take the Star Drive in because it's a fucking Galaxy class. This thing is like a size of what, Manhattan?
It is a big ship, but it just moves like the Millennium Falcon, and I don't care. It's awesome.
It moves like my hand on this Eagle Moss figure, whipping around, spinning around, flying around pipes, shooting shit.
Yeah.
Ape shit. They didn't even were like, hey, we're going to have to shoot stuff a long way. fucking Bev's just back there like, listen, the phaser's still got juice and we got a lot of torpedoes to get through. I'm just, don't mind me. Maybe I'm going to collapse the cave on our way and we're going to be stuck. That would suck, but damn it, this fire button's looking at me and I'm here to push it.
And he successfully does it. He successfully navigates him to the giant green Chloe thing. We all know what happens when you get to the giant green Chloe thing is you got to blow it up, but they have the sad realization. And the sad realization is if they blow it up, they're going to blow the whole cube up. They blow the cube up, they're probably going to kill everybody. And they have no contact right now with Picard or Jack. They tell Will and Worf, hey, we're pulling you out. And Will says, no, you're not. I need to go find Jean-Luc. I owe him the minute I get to try and locate him and facilitate our escape, if it is at all possible to do. And meanwhile, Picard is having the scene you always expected he'd have to have. He's got to jack him. First, he confronts the Queen. He actually tries to shoot the Queen. He's not successful. Queen has shields, and he's pissed. He's angry. There's so much pathos in his like yelling at the Queen of like, you this fucking witch. You bitch have caused every bad thing in my life. We have heard about all of those bad things. And now you're taking my son. I am not fucking having this. Is really the overall like thing he throws out there. Like, this is not happening. If I gotta fucking plug myself into the goddamn Matrix one more time to try and save my son from you, then that is a price I am willing to pay.
I wasn't expecting that, honestly. That kind of, when he's like, I spent 35 years running from ever being in the collective again. I got to face the music and, this is my moment to stand. Go back to First Contact about, falling back. His idea that fighting the Borg means being flesh and blood and shooting Borg in front of him. And what finally the way to defeat them is surrendering your physical form, going back into the collective, re-embracing your role as Locutus and choosing cyberspace. A very budget-friendly cyberspace where you're in a room full of green wisps that are not ghosts that Beverly is banging to talk to your son. So he jacks himself in, and I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. He has the heart-to-heart with Jack.
Gives him the big hug, right? Like the final emotional, he's connected. He is his father. And he says, like, son, this place is blowing up. If you won't leave with me, I'm going to stay with you.
This is ruined. That whatever good things you think are here for you, it's all fake. It's a lie. You got to fight it. And then he's like, no, I'm happy here. And, out there sucks. And here I can enact real change. And it's great. And then Picard, goes for the, well, if, you're not going to leave, then I'm going to stay with you and we'll do this together. And that's what finally snaps him out. It's a good, heartfelt moment. It's a good realization of Picard as a father figure. That's enough to get Jack out. He starts pulling all the shit off of him. Gets the cord off Locutus, or off Picard's neck. Worf and Riker show up. We're like, oh shit, there's the boss plugged back in. I don't know how to feel about this.
So the last piece of the puzzle that fits so neatly together is that Will's choice to come find the captain is ultimately what saves all of them, because his emotions to his wife, like, sorry, Imzadi, I'll be waiting for you with our son.
Yeah.
Which, like, ends his journey, right? Like, his nihilism over his son's death, his inability to, like, comprehend what comes after. He's embracing it to say, yes, I'm believing in it now, and I'll be there waiting for you. But that incredible, intense emotion is something that Troy can pick up on. And suddenly, making up for all of her poor Viridian 3 related decisions, Tokyo drifts the goddamn Enterprise D to just sweep right in where they are and pulls them out in the nick of time.
Dude, that scene of the Enterprise D flying over, apparently the Queen's chamber, by the way, has a big sunroof. And like the lights, the spotlights.
Yeah.
My favorite starship moment, I think, prior to this was that episode of Battlestar Galactica where
they dropped the Galactica into the atmosphere,
just blowing Vipers out all over the places they go to stamp out New Capricorn. It's the D whipping over, spotlights out on the belly. Everybody giving the Queen the big middle finger as they get beamed up, and you can like see the transporter beam flying up into the transporter transceiver dish on the belly, which again is a thing that's there, and it's like this real like 50s like aliens just tractor beaming people up as it flies away, and then the cube blowing up, and then the
one final villainous, futile no from
could have gone for
Queen.
some green flames because Borg is green, but it's this big fireball explosion, and the D comes flying out with its shields on fire, looking all fucking badass. Hell yeah!
And then this last moment, the Sol Station finally got overwhelmed. The assimilated fleet was about to destroy Earth, and with this final gesture of destruction, the mind control is broken. All of the young officers come to. Seven is relieved that she doesn't have to shoot Geordi's daughter, and peace is restored. And we get a lot of emotional hugs, a lot of emotional payoff, a lot of greetings. Worf falls asleep in a chair, and we get a captain's log from Riker. Last captain's log is not from. I thought for sure we'd get a captain's log from Picard, but they give it to Riker, and he says like, we are on year one of a new era now after what we've gone through. Starfleet's trying to rebuild itself from the damage it did as a consequence of this. We're deprogramming all of the officers that had the bad DNA in them, and also using that to root out the last of the changeling infiltrators we hadn't found yet. And then also notes that because of their desire to continue to plumb their depths for information, they didn't kill most of their hostages, and that's when we transition into the first of our epilogues, which is 7 of 9 and Captain Tuvok. A welcome return of an actual Captain Tuvok.
Was he captain or admiral?
Captain. And Captain Tuvok is there to ostensibly punish 7 of 9 for being party to the theft of the Titan, but in reality, of course, to reveal that Shaw believed in her the whole time, that he was her Sunadre and always noticed her, and that actually he recommended her to command before even all of this, and that her heroics in trying to prevent this catastrophe make her qualified and deserving of the rank of captain, which is conferred upon her by Tuvok, which is the right person to do it, in my opinion. I know Janeway is kind of who everyone was saying, but like Tuvok was actually Seven's friend
and mentor.
So, yeah, like
and another universe potential lover.
That's true. And I liked that scene a lot because if it's Tuvok, like I know you. I know how you're going to react to this. So I'm going to guide you through what's about to occur. Like it should be him.
His accusations that she has a disregard for protocol, or maybe with Shaw saying in front, like, there's a disregard for protocol procedure. I'm like, again, trying to like remember like that was. Does that also apply to 20-year-old? I guess it does. Like she would just do shit without asking for permission, and that's what she ran afoul of Belanda a lot.
They promote her, and then they go through Raffi's thing, which whatever, doesn't matter. They go to Data getting a therapy session from Troy. Data continually uses everyone's wrong ranks. He calls Jean-Luc captain. He calls Riker commander. It's like what he remembers because he's literally has Data's memory from season 7. And then they get to a year later where the D gets put into the Fleet Museum officially. So there is an indication apparently that the D was in active service for a year after the fleet disaster because they were short on ships.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Also, apparently there's a pretty good YouTube video. I don't know if it's fan made or what, but it's the recovery of the saucer.
Oh, from Viridian 3?
Yeah. That's something that kind of perked my attention. I was like, I'm going to have to cycle back around to that once I've seen all this stuff. There's a good speech on the bridge between the remaining officers. They specifically call out, all of this is evidence the past matters, which is, again, massive fan service. And what we've talked about before, which is the desire of the executive producers and the showrunners to distance themselves from the legacy audience and try to create a new audience. And here's Terry Matalas spitting in their face saying, nope, I'm here for everybody. And especially the old people, your inclusion and your participation in this matters, and I'm here for you. Like, that's basically them looking at the camera and saying, like, yeah, we're talking to you, long-term audience. Thank you, basically.
Yeah. I think the best line is Riker saying, we would have been different without her, but we wouldn't have been better. And it's like, that's their characters talking, and that's the actors talking. It's everyone that's ever been involved with Star Trek talking in that moment, saying all of our lives have been better because we've been involved in this. We would have been different people if we hadn't had, and wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been a better life.
They turn off the computer. They say, basically going to power down. One final comment on Margell, always miss that voice.
Hopefully with AI coming along, we'll hear it again. We now get, I think, the 2-pat part of the ending, which is apparently Jackson Ensign now. Like, Jack got turbo sped run through the Starfleet Academy and is now about to go on active duty on a starship. And his mom and dad, we have an Admiral Crusher who's taken over Starfleet Medical.
Again.
And bless. Well, I love that. And they're taking their son to his first posting. And they arrive there, and it's the Titan. And Picard's like, oh, yeah, no, it makes sense you'd be on the Titan. And Jack's like, no, it's not the Titan. And as they come up, it's revealed that the USS Titan is no longer. It has been rechristened in honor of its service to saving the whole of the Federation. And like any good Federation saving starship, it needs the right Federation saving starship name. This is the U.S. Enterprise NCC 1701G.
So some thoughts on that. Kind of a slap in the face to the legacy of the Titan that they erase its name and discontinue it. I get why, if you're trying to make a new TV show, it's important to have the name Enterprise in there, because we saw some of the difficulty that Voyager had to go through because it wasn't an Enterprise on screen. So the F had just been rolled out. Shelby got gunned down in the captain's chair, but do they decommission it? Do they rename it? Was it somehow destroyed?
According to the Enterprise F had been in active service for 20 years at that point, because the E was destroyed not long after
Nemesis.
And it was to be decommissioned anyway. It was its last showing was on.
How long could that have been? Because Picard had gone through Nemesis. Again, timelines on Star Trek.
Well, keep in mind the Nemesis came out like 21, 22 years ago. And the idea was right after Nemesis is when he relinquished command of the Enterprise E. And so it was destroyed not long after.
He did his thing for a while. Clearly there was enough time for him to knock up Beverly. And then Romulus was going to blow up because of the sun. He gave up his posting on Enterprise to
he was
take
in command of he was in command of a different vessel at that point.
Really?
Yeah. There's a whole comic about it, but it
These
doesn't
fucking
matter.
comics, dude. Like,
yeah.
You know, tell it to Memory Beta. I don't give a shit.
What I do give a shit about is that they give you what the value proposition is for Star Trek Legacy before they end the show. It'll be 7 of 9, Raffi, and Jack, and they're the ones that would be the key characters, along with all the bridge crew you got to know on the Titan, and they're going to go off to in space adventures. If only we could dispose of Raffi, of course. That is
Who does she have blackmail on?
I don't know.
That Michelle Hurd has clung to fucking this property for 3 seasons like dog shit on a boot made out of cement.
Yeah,
maybe it's just like, hey,
her. It's wild.
You know, we got into production. Her contract said she's going to be an integral part through all, the full run, and we can't get rid of her. Let's say maybe they do get the show and that they recognize that she is the worst part, and then she gets like a fucking off-screen death, or the transporter fucks up and turns her into the Thing or whatever, or she gets written off. I want to go be with my family instead. But like, she is just miserable in every goddamn scene. I do like that Jack Crusher basically gets turned into like a decorative ornament in the Troy seat. Like, here, go put your scant on, eye candy. I had to be eye candy for fucking 4 seasons of Voyager. You're gonna be eye candy to the ladies here while I continue.
Hey, listen,
also,
the man's got enough charm. He literally successfully charms every single female he ran into and across the entire show. So
sure,
I'll give it to him. Jack, good luck. And the last scene that we have is, I think, the second to
last scene.
Well, yeah, the last proper scene of the episode is the one that I think that it kind of had to end on. They made the decision not to kill anybody off, which I think was something that was a bit odd. I thought for sure Picard would die, but Metalis said
he did die. He died at the end of season 1, actually.
Yeah, Picard said
little known fact.
He contemplated killing off one or more of the characters, but decided that he did not have the capacity to do so. Like, I love these characters too much to kill any of them. I'm not going to. That was literally what he said. Like, I can't bring myself to do it.
Nor do you need to. I mean, you killed Data. Right.
And that was, like, they knew, like, I can't kill Data because I've killed him already. Killing Picard seems wrong because, again, he's sort of died. So do you kill Riker? Do you, that would spoil the end of his plot. Like,
it's not.
When you think about it, there's not a lot of good options, so he just didn't take any of them.
It's not Game of Thrones, and it doesn't have to be Game of Thrones. And if anything, we proved with the first 2 seasons that Game of Thrones and Next Gen does not work. And you got to go back to the 90s, and you got to tell 90s stories. And in 90s stories, the good guys win, and everybody lives, and the audience is fine with that because that's what they're there for. Like, if anything deserves a feel-good ending, it is a bunch of, do-gooder, lawful good space guys out there risking it all and doing the right thing at every turn and getting along without any workplace drama. That's the story, that everybody lives is fine. So they're drinking in 10 Ford down in LA because you don't got the budget to make the Galaxy class 10 Ford, and Guinan is off screen where she belongs at this point.
For no Whoopi Goldberg, and what they do is end on a Shakespearean quote from Picard, the way that it should. After, of course, Data tries to finish his dirty limerick he's been trying to finish for 35 years, and why not play some cards while we play the theme music, right? Like, and shoot it from above, just like all good things, right? Like, let's end this the way we should have kept it ended.
Actually, there were a lot of top-down shots to the point where I was almost like, did Frakes direct this? Or is Terry Metalis just like going by the Frakes playbook?
I mean, this is just straight, let's recreate that last shot, right? Like,
and they go a long distance. I mean, that's a whole title sequence focusing on a poker game as these guys are just palling around. And I let it run, not expecting there to be a post-credits scene. But sure enough, there it was. And it's Jack settling in. And then old Q popping in saying, hey, you're going to shoulder the burden of your father, and humanity's still under the microscope. And
humanity's on trial, and now you're the defendant, young
yeah,
mortal.
fuck season 2. I didn't die. That's over.
Let's go. This is Star Trek Legacy. Book it.
Yeah.
Got John DeLance. He's gonna do it. Still looking good, like a snowy fox. I feel like the finale was a little like Vox was better than The Last Generation, just because the big reveal of the D is such an emotional high point. But together, this makes everything worth having been to endure. Like season 1 and 2 being garbage was fine. I got this. Can't take this away from me.
It's a standalone product. All you need to know is at some point Picard got transferred into a robot body.
Yep. That's literally the only plot point.
It's a shame that Shaw dies and Raffi lives, but I'm sure there's politics involved in that. Could this have been one season?
Yeah, you could have just done this as a limited season.
No, I mean,
off.
Obviously, yeah, you could have done that as one season. But if you had 3 seasons of Picard and you had started with Metalis at the helm and everybody involved, could you have turned this into season 1 and had 2 more seasons of other stuff? Could you have expanded the Changeling threat into an entire second season and had the first season been a full season of getting the crew back together, more Shaw, more adventures and side stuff there, and then had season 3 all been about the Borg threat?
I feel like, yeah, if you had the opportunity to tell this story you tell in one season in 3, you could have expanded a lot. You could have really made this about Picard being on a special mission and Shaw having to be the chaperone of a man he hates, and like him slowly warming and understanding, and Picard pulling in all of his old associates. And like maybe season 1 is like, just the mystery of the Shrike and him finding his son and like understanding, trying to unravel, there's a conspiracy within Starfleet. And then season 2, you get like, all the material on the changelings, and they've infiltrated, and then
get a little bit more Rolaren, or maybe
more
the
Rolaren. You could have gotten more callbacks to like, here's some Voyager characters, here's some DS9 characters. The whole Berman Trek era is coming into this, while the TNG crew is the primary movers. And then in the 3rd season, you finally understand it's the Borg who's behind it. They launch their plan. There's a running battle. And you realize, I got to go back and get the D. That's the only way I can beat these guys, because they've got such a technological advantage. I got to go analog to get under them. And yeah, I think that would have been what you could have done with 3 seasons.
I think maybe you could have given each character more. Like, I think everybody got a lot of time in the spotlight. If anything was shaky, it was the recovery of Data, and just what a
better on that.
What a blip it was for something that massive, especially again given what Data was in the first season versus the again, I'm not going to hold season 3 accountable to season 1, but like, silly there. So it's a shame that they didn't have 3 seasons of quality, but at least there was 1 season of excellent fan service. And again, I mean, I think if I were to really sit there and quiz my wife, that there's a lot of stuff that just was not for her and was eye rolly, and rightfully so. But to that target demographic, like, that fan service was all they made a world of difference. Hokey biomechanical DNA, again, rickety bridge, but it was suitable connective tissue to draw the other elements together and make the plot work as a whole, to create the stakes to the level they had to go to.
And then just the right amount of memberberries. Like, people mock it, but you know what?
Buckets and buckets.
But earned, right? Like, after you've gone the distance and you're parched and you've seen so much and done so much, you take a big scoop of the memberberries and you shovel them down your throat. It's like, it tastes so good. Just a nice use to pay off at the end. Like, let's splooge all over you. Here's a TNG episode.
But still, again, it's like it's not just like, oh, hey, look, here's my Renosican flute. Oh, look at that. Remember that thing? Like, we need we need an old ship specifically. Rolaren's back. Now she's like a badass high, Gestapo security person who's got a lot of shit to resolve with Picard. Hey, here's Shelby looking like a big fucking hypocrite. Look where all her ambition got her gunned down in her own seat, at her most public moment. Like, yeah, the member berries are there, but it's all strong connections.
Yeah, it's in service to the story, and that's important. Bravo, Terry Metalis. You really pulled an impossible trick. If I would have... Under no circumstances did I think I would say at the end of reviewing all 10 episodes of Star Trek Picard Season 3 that this was not only the best Star Trek has been since the New Trek era, but this might be the best season of Star Trek since TNG/DS9 itself. I think this beats all of Enterprise we've watched. I can't think of a season of Voyager I like more than this. I think you'd have to go back to some of the best Trek has ever been to compare. And Terry Metalis, he made great Trek with a box of scraps in a cave. He did it with no money. He did it by convincing the right people that he was the right man for the job. He knew what to keep. He knew what to ignore. He knew what to focus on. And he fucking succeeded. He exceeded expectations so hard. He may have changed the whole trajectory of Trek as a franchise. We'll see. But he's given the best chance at life he could. I think that's all I got, man.
Yeah, it was very moving. It was a good watch. The shame is that season 1 and 2 were so bad that it made me as averse to watching 3 as it was that I couldn't be there with people watching real time. Then I got hit with basically all the fucking spoilers. But even going in with all the spoilers, still certainly worth my time, worth your time if somehow you hadn't watched this thing, which I think I was probably the only person in Star Trek fandom to not have watched it. And it was a good time, and
go see it. If you have somehow not watched it, watch it. Thank you for bullying us into doing this. Peter thanks you quietly, and we'll see you again later.